On December 25, 2002, a construction contractor in Hurricane, West Virginia, woke up and realized he'd just won $314.9 million. Within 5 years, his granddaughter was dead, his marriage was destroyed, and most of that fortune had disappeared into lawsuits, theft, and grief. His name was Jack Whitaker, and the mistake that started his unraveling happened in the first 24 hours after he found out he'd won. He's not alone. There's a long, well-documented history of lottery jackpots destroying the exact lives they were supposed to save. And in almost every case, the winner broke the same handful of rules before they ever told another person. Before I tell you exactly what happened to him, and to several winners whose stories get even wilder, quick question for you. If you won a jackpot like that tomorrow, genuinely, what's the first thing you would do? Would you tell your partner right away? Post it online? Call your mom before you called a lawyer? Type your honest answer in the comments. I read every single one, and some of the answers people give actually surprise me. Here's another one to sit with while we go through this. Before I reveal what these winners got wrong, take a guess. What do you think is the single most common mistake that turns a life-changing jackpot into a life-destroying one? Drop your prediction below, and let's see how close you get by the end. And if you know somebody who jokes about what they'd do if they won the lottery, or somebody who just came into any kind of money, an inheritance, a settlement, a bonus, send them this video before they make one of these same mistakes. All right, let's get into it. If real stories like this are your thing, ones with actual court records, actual names, and actual dollar figures, hit like on this video and subscribe while you're at it, because we cover cases exactly like this one every week. Now, you've probably heard the statistic before. 70% of lottery winners end up broke. It gets repeated in nearly every article and video about this topic, so often that people just accept it as fact. Here's the problem. That number doesn't actually exist. The organization it's usually credited to, a financial education nonprofit called NEFE, has publicly stated they never produced that research and can't confirm where it came from. It seems to have been floated once by a single expert during a private meeting back in 2001, and journalists just kept repeating it for the next 2 decades without ever checking. So we're not using that number. Instead, we're walking through real, documented, in some cases court-verified stories, because the truth turns out to be strange enough on its own. The first thing every smart winner does happens in the first few minutes after they realize they've won, and most people get it wrong without even knowing it. It has to do with how you sign the ticket. On January 6, 2018, a woman in Merrimack, New Hampshire, bought a Powerball ticket at a store called Reed's Ferry Market. Her numbers hit. All of them. The jackpot was $559.7 million. At the time, the 8th largest lottery prize in American history. Like almost everyone tells you to do, she flipped the ticket over and signed her real name. Because a signed ticket is legally yours, and an unsigned one can turn into an expensive dispute if it's lost or stolen. That part she got right. Here's what she didn't know yet. In New Hampshire, and in a number of other states, you're allowed to claim a prize through a trust instead of your own name, which puts the trust's name on the ticket and on the public record instead of yours. She only learned this from a lawyer after she'd already signed her own name in ink, and by then, it was too late to undo. So she did something almost no winner in history had done. She sued her own state's lottery commission just to protect her privacy, arguing she now feared for her safety once her name went public. The case, Jane Doe versus the New Hampshire Lottery Commission, went in front of a judge, and in March 2018, Judge Charles Temple ruled in her favor, letting her name stay sealed, while the front of the ticket, her town, and the prize amount stayed public. She ended up collecting roughly $352 million before tax, walking away with around $264 million after the government took its share, all through something called the Good Karma Family Trust. She still gave over $200,000 to local charities within days. But she only protected her identity because she happened to hire the right lawyer just in time. The actual smart move? The one financial planners repeat constantly is to find out your state's rules on trusts and anonymity before you ever put pen to paper. Sign it wrong, and you can't take it back. The second thing smart winners do falls almost unnatural in a moment. They slow down. Most states give you a claim window running anywhere from 90 days to a full year, and that window exists for a reason. It gives you time to think before the world finds out. Jack Whitaker didn't use his. West Virginia law required him to be identified publicly, and just one day after Christmas 2002, he stood next to the governor at a press conference in Charleston, holding a ceremonial $10 million check. Within 8 months, 2 employees at a strip club he frequented drugged his drink and stole $545,000 in cash from his truck. A year after that, roughly $200,000 more was taken. He was sued repeatedly. He was arrested for drunk driving with $117,000 in cash and a pistol in his boot. In 2004, his granddaughter Brandy, who friends said was targeted for her newfound money and had fallen into drug use, was found dead. His marriage of over 4 decades ended in a bitter divorce that dragged through the courts until 2011. Whitaker told reporters years later that he wished he'd simply torn up the ticket. Now, compare that to Manuel Franco. In March 2019, this 24-year-old from West Allis, Wisconsin, working a job that barely let him save $1,000, matched all 6 numbers on a Powerball ticket bought at a Speedway gas station and won $768.4 million, the third largest jackpot in American history at the time. Wisconsin doesn't allow anonymity either, so Franco knew his name would eventually go public too. But instead of stepping forward immediately, he sat on the news for almost a month. Quietly, away from cameras, he hired a team of lawyers and financial advisors to help him figure out exactly what to do before a single reporter knew his name. When he finally stepped forward in April 2019, he already had a plan. He'd already decided on the lump sum, and he'd already built a support system. Same country, same lack of anonymity laws, completely different outcome, because one man let the moment control him, and the other man controlled the moment. Here's my honest take on why this matters so much. People assume the danger of winning the lottery is other people, con artists, greedy relatives, scammers crawling out of the woodwork. And sure, that's part of it. But looking at case after case, I think the bigger danger is losing your own ability to think clearly in the first place. The moment your name is public, or the moment you start telling people, you stop being a person making decisions and start being a target, a topic, a walking opportunity for everyone around you. Silence isn't about hiding money. It's about buying yourself the one thing money cannot replace once it's gone, which is a clear head. Every winner who protected that window with quiet before going public ended up making calmer, smarter decisions than the ones who let the story break before they had a plan. The third thing smart winners do is build a team of vetted, boring, unglamorous professionals before they let anyone new into their financial life. An estate attorney, a certified public accountant, a fee-only financial advisor who works for a flat fee, not a commission, not a friend of a friend, not somebody who reaches out to you first. This one matters more than almost any other on this list, and the story that proves it is one of the darkest in lottery history. In November 2006, a day laborer from Lakeland, Florida, named Abraham Shakespeare, won a $30 million jackpot on the Florida Lotto. He took the lump sum, which came out to $17 million. Shakespeare had never finished school and struggled to read, and within a couple of years, most of that money had already been given away or loaned out to people who never paid him back. In 2008, he was introduced to a woman named Doris Moore, who everyone called Dee Dee. Moore inserted herself into his life, telling him she wanted to help protect what was left of his money and maybe even write a book about his story. Instead, prosecutors say, she took control of his remaining assets. In April 2009, Abraham Shakespeare vanished. His family reported him missing, and for months, Nobody knew where he was. Then, in January 2010, police found his body buried under a freshly poured concrete slab in the backyard of a Plant City, Florida property owned by Dee Moore. He'd been shot twice in the chest. In December 2012, a jury convicted Moore of first-degree murder, and the judge who sentenced her to life without parole called her, in his own words, the most manipulative person he'd ever encountered in his courtroom. Shakespeare didn't lose his fortune to bad investing or a wild spending spree. He lost his life because he let the wrong person become the one managing his money and his story. A real financial team has no reason to isolate you from your own family. If someone you barely know starts positioning themselves as your only advisor, that's not help. That's a warning sign. Quick pause, because I want to know something. Out of the 3 stories so far, the woman who had to sue her own state to protect her identity, the contractor who lost his family within years of a press conference, or the day laborer who trusted the wrong person and paid with his life, which one shocked you the most? Genuinely, drop it in the comments, because we're about to get into a 4th story that might top all 3, and I'm curious whether you'll agree once you hear it. The 4th thing smart winners do is decide in advance exactly how much they're willing to give to family and friends, and they put that number in place before a single person asks. Because without a plan, the requests never stop. And few stories prove that better than William Post III, known to everyone as Bud. In 1988, Post was living in Erie, Pennsylvania, with just $2.46 in his bank account. He pawned a ring for $40, gave the cash to his landlady, Ann Karpick, and asked her to buy him some Pennsylvania lottery tickets. One of those tickets hit for $16.2 million. Post chose annual payments of just under $498,000 a year. Within 2 weeks of his very first payment, he'd already spent over $300,000 on a liquor license, a restaurant lease for 2 of his siblings, a used car lot for another sibling, and a twin-engine airplane, despite not holding a pilot's license. Ann Karpick sued him, claiming he'd promised to split the winnings with her, and she won 1/3 of it in court. Then his own brother, Jeffrey, hired a hitman in a plot to kill Post and his 6th wife, hoping to inherit a share of what was left. The plot was discovered before anyone got hurt, but by then, family members were openly fighting over money that hadn't even reached them yet. Within a couple of years of his win, Post had $1 million in debt and filed for bankruptcy. He described it simply: "Everybody dreams of winning money," he said, "but nobody realizes the nightmares that come with it." He eventually sold his mansion for a fraction of what he paid and auctioned off his remaining annual payments just to get people to leave him alone. He died in 2006, still in financial trouble, at 66 years old. Post never sat down and decided what he could actually afford to give away. Every request got answered in the moment, based on who was standing in front of him and how loud they were being. Smart winners do the opposite. They decide the number first, privately, before the pressure starts. So when someone asks, the answer is already made, and it isn't personal. The 5th thing smart winners do is understand exactly what the law requires them to disclose, especially around marriage, before making any decisions about who finds out and when. In December 1996, a Los Angeles woman named Denise Rossi was part of an office lottery pool with several co-workers. Their group won a jackpot worth $6.68 million. Rossi's personal share came out to $1.336 million, paid over 20 years. 11 days after finding out she'd won, Rossi filed for divorce from her husband of 25 years, Thomas Rossi, and never told him or the court about the money. She later admitted in legal filings she was afraid he'd try to take it from her. It took Thomas about 2 years to find out, when a company that buys lottery payments for cash sent him a letter by mistake. In 2001, a California appeals court ruled that Denise had committed fraud under state law by intentionally hiding a community asset during divorce proceedings. And the judge didn't just split the winnings fairly, he awarded her ex-husband the entire amount, every single payment, as a penalty for the concealment. Her own attorney later called the punishment extremely harsh. This case isn't really about lottery luck at all. It's about the fact that smart winners know money and legal disclosure laws don't bend for good intentions. If you're married, going through a separation, or involved in any legal proceeding, hiding a windfall isn't privacy. In the eyes of the law, it can be fraud, and fraud has a way of costing you the entire prize. The sixth and final thing smart winners do is protect their relationships and their own sense of identity, just as carefully as they protect their money. Because sudden wealth doesn't just change your bank account, it changes how every person around you behaves. In June 1997, a Home Depot employee named Billy Bob Harold Jr. from the Kingwood area near Houston, Texas, won $31 million playing Lotto Texas. He'd been laid off from multiple jobs before that and was barely making ends meet for his wife, Barbara Jean, and their 3 kids. He was a deeply religious man, and when the money came in, he gave generously to his church, to strangers, to extended family. But the requests kept growing louder and more constant, from people he knew and people he'd never met. The pressure strained his marriage until he and Barbara Jean divorced. He told a financial advisor that winning the lottery was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. Less than 2 years after that quick pick ticket changed his life, Billy Bob Harold Jr. died by suicide in his home. It's one of the most sobering stories in lottery history, and a reminder that money can solve a bank balance without solving anything happening underneath it. Now contrast that with Sharon Tirabassi from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. On Easter weekend in 2004, Tirabassi, a single mother who'd just come off welfare, won $10.5 million playing Lotto Super 7. She had no financial advisor either. She bought houses, cars, vacations to Cancun and Las Vegas, and gave $1 million to her parents, plus another $1.75 million split among her siblings. By 2013, most of it was gone, and she was back to riding the bus to a part-time job, renting a house for her family, with what remained held in trust for her kids. And yet when reporters found her, she didn't sound broken. She sounded like someone who valued years of memories with her family over the number that used to sit in her bank account. Same financial ending as almost every other name in this video. Completely different emotional ending, because she protected her relationships the entire way down. So, here's the pattern across every one of these stories, spanning 3 decades, 2 countries, and well over $1 billion combined dollars in winnings. It was never really about the size of the jackpot. It was about what each person did or didn't do in the first hours and days after they found out they'd won. Sign the ticket the right way. Slow down before you claim it. Build a real team before you let anyone else in. Decide your giving budget before anyone asks. Know your legal obligations before you make a single move. And protect the people and the parts of yourself that money can never buy back. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them, and it reveals everyone standing around them too. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If a jackpot landed in your hands tomorrow, which one of these 6 things do you think you'd actually get wrong? Be honest with yourself in the comments, because most people believe they'd handle it perfectly, right up until they're actually holding the ticket. If this gave you something to think about, hit like. Send it to the one friend who always jokes about what they'd do if they won. And subscribe, because there are a lot more stories exactly like these ones still to come.